All right, so these are the vocab key terms that are going to go with lesson 2 for the causes of the French Revolution. Our first one is a word that is deficit spending. So when a government spends more money than it takes in. So when you have a government that spends more money than it takes in, it is in debt. Okay, so this is a government that is in debt, and no matter how much taxes they bring in, don't cover the debt. Okay, estates are the social class in pre-revolutionary France. Please remember that this PRE tells us that it's happening before. The Regents is famous for using like pre-World War I or pre-revolutionary to talk about a time period, and making sure that you know that that's before is going to be helpful. So these estates are these social classes. And then political revolution is an attempt, typically bloody, we're going to see that happen, in which the government of a country is changed. So when we see political, we want to think about government. And in this case, the revolution is talking about the idea that something has changed. Okay, and this last word is bourgeoisie. It is a French word. That is why it's kind of like looks like this, but it is the bourgeoisie and is the upper middle class, the businessman or the merchant. When we think of the bourgeoisie, we want to think about these are the people who are kind of bougie. These are the people who have a little bit of money, but in this case, they have no political power. All right, so what is a revolution? So when we're looking at this, a revolution in general is just a great big change from the way that things were in the past. We have political, we have non-political. So a political, again, is the change in the government. You overthrow one government, you get new leaders. Non-political is a change in technology or ideas. So when we're thinking about the political revolution, we're thinking about things like the French Revolution. We're going to think about things like the American Revolution. When we're thinking of things like the non-political, we're thinking about going back to Global One, the Neolithic Revolution, and eventually we're going to talk about with the Industrial Revolution. All right, so when you have political, it's the change in the government. So again, that being our key idea, is the change in the government versus a change in technology or ideas. Those are our two big kinds of political kind of revolutions that you can have. All right, so our big idea is the French Revolution, beginning in 1789, was a political revolution inspired by the Enlightenment, ideas, and inequity in France. Remember, this is one of our enduring issues. And when we think of inequity, we're thinking a lack of fairness. So we're just going to see this enduring issue in the French Revolution. All right, so we get to this political cartoon and we are seeing that we have our estates. The first estate is the clergy, and their big thing is they pay no taxes. Now the clergy are people who are members of the church. So if we look at the political cartoon, we see the guy in purple, we see that he has a cross on his chest, so that's going to tell you that he is the first estate, okay? The second estate is the nobility. They own land. They don't like absolutism because absolutism means that the nobles have no power. But they are also exempt from taxes, okay? And here we're going to see up here our second estate. Now, one of the things that I want to point out with these is they're wearing a lot nicer clothing, right? They are put together. One of the other things, if we look at their faces are a little heavier. So when we think of that and we see somebody that is fat in this time period, or that is heavier or bulkier, that definitely looks like they don't miss a meal, it means they have access to food, which means that they are wealthy. Okay. Now, both of these two men, they are riding on this third guy up in here. And when you see what he's kind of looking like, you see some tears in his clothing. He's leaning on this plow in order to like keep his weight up. His boots are falling down. They're ripped over here. And these guys are perfectly fine. Okay. So this man right here, he represents the third estate. Now, the third estate is anybody who was not the clergy and not the nobility. So in this case, it was the bourgeoisie and the peasants. They made up 98% of the population. They have to pay 100% of the taxes, and they are starving. They have not eaten. Now, the bourgeoisie, they're doing a little bit better because they're business owners, but because they're not nobility, they don't have any rights. So they don't like the second estate. They don't like the first estate because these two estates get to do whatever they want, whereas the third estate, even though they make up almost 100% of the population, end up paying all of the taxes and seeing none of the reward. So again, they're faced with hunger and starvation because they're paying all these taxes, but there are no benefits. They're paying all their money that they would have used for food to taxes. So we look at a couple issues. Now there's political issues and there's economic issues. So this first one the last one we just talked about, that was more of a social issue. So what we're looking at in here are political and economic. So the political issue is the absolute monarchy. We have King Louis XVI. So this is the great-grandson of King Louis XIV from the previous unit. So King Louis XIV, he built the Palace of Versailles. He spent all that money, filling everything with gold. Everyone's starving. His great-grandson, who comes next, is Louis XVI. He's very weak. He never leaves the Palace of Versailles. He's never visited anyone else in France. He just sort of like hangs out in his palace. And his big thing right here is he just sort of like puts out taxes, spends money however he wants, and he makes those decisions. He has a ton of parties. He has censorship of speech in the press, and he can imprison anyone without trial for however long he would like. So he is an absolute monarchy, and this is not something that people are going to take lightly. Now, when we get into the debt, that starts with him. So debt is money that is owed to someone else. So if you are not sure what this word debt is, I want you to write the definition down to make sure that you know that. And Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette, they live in the palace for the French Revolution, and they basically cause his debt. Now, when you're looking at this box down here, there's a question that is asking you to explain the one that is the most reason according to you. Which one of these do you think most led to the French Revolution?